Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared podcast.
Hey everybody, Mark and Steve on the PBSE podcast. This is episode 302. My partner says I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, but he's hooked on porn. Should I believe him?
An oldie but a goodie.
Yes,
an oldie what comes to mind.
Yeah, let's read what this partner sent to us. Hi, Mark and Steve. My partner and I have been listening to your podcast for a month now. He's been sober for a few months and working in recovery. And we soon plan to get involved with the Dare to Connect program. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Can't wait to have you.
Absolutely.
Here's my question. How do I get past feeling not attractive to him when his porn usage consisted of women being complete opposites of me?
Mm.
He tells me I'm the most beautiful woman in the world to him. However, the hard/soft porn he would view was always with women that looked extremely opposite of me. Opposite hair, skin color, cultural background, etc. In my eyes, that looks to me that like he is physically more attracted to them than to me. So why be with me and not someone who looks like them? How can I believe him that he does physically prefer me over them?
Yeah. The reason I said this is an oldie but a goodie is not because it's positive by any means, but this is sort of like the sexual compulsion addiction question as old as time. Might be the most common one we get, if not definitely up in the top 5. And it is kind of the ultimate catch-22, right? Here, like so many other areas of recovery, this is where an addict, from the addict's perspective, he finds himself living kind of the seventh circle of hell version of the boy who cried wolf.
Yep.
I've been saying this all this time, right? But my actions have countermanded it. So now when I'm trying to be honest, now when I'm trying to, and we don't know what other forms of deception or minimization or other things have gone on. She doesn't specify, if any, but right, there's been this falling out of trust. Now he's trying to be sincere. He's trying to say, I choose you, but his actions don't square, right? And because of the betrayal, and again, we don't know what other forms of betrayal the trauma's taken, her brain, understandably and rightfully so, is saying, this is not a safe source for a narrative. I'm questioning what I'm hearing, and I don't know which parts to believe and not.
And I know that the culture tries to dismiss this.
Yeah.
It's just boys being boys, this has been going on since the beginning of time. Right? There's all this rationalization and justification and dismissal of it. But if you step back to really look at this, it's kind of like, look at it from the betrayed partner standpoint. Okay, hold on a second. We entered into a sacred contract with each other, this contract of marriage and being exclusive. And we were all out shopping around until we decided to choose each other exclusively. And I assumed that that's what that meant. But now I'm finding out that you've been going and regularly looking at naked women outside of our exclusive relationship. What am I supposed to make of that? Especially when I find out that none of them look anything like me.
Mm.
I mean, you talk about cutting right to the very central core of a woman's self-worth and sense of desirability. That's what this does, right? This is painful personal rejection. Let's just call it what it is. This is rejection. I reject you. I'm obsessed with them. And so it makes complete sense that she would be expressing these legitimate doubts, concerns, and quite frankly, pain and even anger.
Yeah.
It's not because what does so many want to write this up? Well, she's dealing with insecurities. Or she's making more of this than what it actually is. How many times have we heard that? Or really blatantly, she's just crazy.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
And none of
absolutely.
those things are true.
Well, and it does sound on the outside like you're saying. I mean, it does sound like insanity, right? Because the logical brain would say, yeah, like she's saying, right? You say you like me, but what I keep finding out that you have been accessing is the opposite in almost every way. So that again help me understand. And the key to understanding, and we want to be clear about this, not agreeing with or
Not,
giving a pass for.
not,
Okay,
not at
we're
all.
just going to explain for a second the mentality behind pornography. This doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it good. We're just simply trying to give a perspective that might make it more. It might square more of the logic, the bizarre logic of the addict brain with the logic of a healthily, fully functioning one.
Well,
Okay.
I'm glad you said bizarre logic, right? Because Steve, how many guys have you and I worked with early on? We have some guys that are newer in our Dare to Connect program who voiced this just last week. I keep telling her that she's the only one I want. I keep saying to her, "You're beautiful to me. I love you. I desire you. I want to be with you. I love having sex with you." And the guys are so frustrated that she won't listen. She won't believe them.
Mm-hmm.
With all of this acts, this sexual acting out with pornography and social media, et cetera, et cetera. Why won't she believe me when I tell you that she's the only one? Right? And the guys become really frustrated. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Let's put yourself on her side for a moment. And in fact, we're just going into a brand new topic in the Dare to Connect program. Boy, if there was a time for you to get in, this would be great. We're just starting to talk about what true empathy looks like, what it is, how to engage in it, how a lot of addiction behaviors are the exact opposite of empathy. We're just starting into that topic, which is eventually going to flow into accountability and eventually is going to go into boundary setting, right? So, but let's talk for a minute about, because Steve, you and I can relate to this. We remember our heavy addiction years. I remember well my addict mindset. And so how could a guy think like this? How would he be so preposterous and so insane to think that he could tell me that he loves me and I'm the most beautiful woman in the world when he's looking at thousands of other naked women? How in the world could he think that way?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what addiction is.
Well, and I mean, it's so many things, right? And we got to really glance at this because otherwise we'll run out of time for discussing the substance of what we need to get through. But, in addiction to pornography, or other sexually maladaptive behaviors or dysfunctions is really in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways motivated by a lot of the same or similar factors as other addictions,
Yes.
right? Seeking out pornography or again behaviors like it is, among other things, an addiction is a pursuit of escape, or numbing or compensation for things or all of the above.
Right. It's, yeah,
Um,
coping with life, avoiding the hard, dealing with stress. It's all about what? It's all about the high. It's about,
correct.
we could spend a whole podcast just on the brain's dopamine system. It's about dopamine rush. It's the brain's pleasure reward system hooked on what? Novelty, variety, right? Switching it up, extremes, intensity. I want as much stimulation as I can get and just keep it coming. It's
Correct.
it's anything but holistic attraction. There's nothing to do with holistic, complete, true attraction or true relationships. It's exactly the opposite.
I mean, it's one of the many reasons why there are literally endless quote unquote categories of pornography out there available.
Endless.
And they seem to, and just when you think they have categorized every possible form, they somehow find more. Because this is a fundamental component of, frankly, keeping someone purchasing or ascribing to the product.
Yes.
And so, again, does that make it okay? No, but this is But to this partner, we do want to communicate, I guess, if there's a silver lining, is that what you're describing is very common. Now, there is kind of a catch-22 here, right? And there are other reasons that could be at play that we don't have time to get into. But again, we're stuck in this place where, she is logically, this doesn't square. He's no longer trustworthy, right? And so, so what do we do about that? Well, there's another piece to understand about this as well. And I like the word that Mark we're gonna use it a couple of times here because he brought it up before we started. There's a real immaturity, right, to the addict brain, and how it copes or doesn't with life, how it engages or doesn't with stressors or living life on life's terms. We often, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to, as we go into this discussion about what was insanely hard for me to hear. I didn't want to hear anyone on a podcast telling me I was immature.
Oh, sure.
Click, yeah, done with you, you moron. I didn't want to hear that. But I hope that the guys struggling who are still listening at this point will hear us out. One of we talked about what pornography is, right? This variety, novelty, switching it up, pleasure pursuing, all that stuff. But it's also important to talk about what pornography isn't.
Yeah.
Pornography is, for me, as I started to get into real recovery and healthy, I realized that through pornography and other sexual outlets, I was pursuing something that I was too afraid to go and obtain in the mature adult-like way. I was pursuing basic human intimacy and connection, right? Deeply connecting with another human being, both physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I wanted that deep connection. Something inside me said, I've got to have that connection. I want it. But I didn't have the maturity to pursue it, and all the sacrifice and leaning into the hard and all that it takes to have that kind of human relationship. I took the really quick, easy, so-called way to get there through pornography and sexual outlets. And what did that end up being? It was just a chemical roller coaster. I'd get the big, giant, high dopamine spike after a big porn binge, right? The sort of counterfeit feeling of connection, and then the letdown, right down into the basement where you were more lonely and disconnected than before. And so what happened to me? I became like a bucket with holes in it. I craved the connection. I would so-called fill that connection and intimacy bucket through the pornography and sexual outlets, and then it would all drain away through the holes really quickly. And then I'd find myself going back into another binge to try and go pursue it again and again and again. And that's why we end up in that trap. And the more we avoid real human connection and relationships, the harder it becomes to go and pursue those, because they're nothing like the pornography and sexual outlet side. They're hard. They take work. They take effort. They take vulnerability and sacrifice and real love. And I got to the place when I was in junior high school at about age 13, when I got hooked on porn. I got into the habit of, that's the only way that I knew or was willing to go and try to pursue some semblance of connection, was through those sexual outlets and pornography. I was crazy immature when it came to how to meet life on life's terms and what it meant to have real human relationships. I didn't know what that was, and I had not pursued them for so long that when I got into my adult life, I didn't know how.
Yeah.
It's too easy to just go look at porn when stuff got hard.
Well, and the immaturity or the simplicity behind that juvenile attraction that Mark is describing, right? It doesn't just play out in the attraction state. It plays out it plays out in a lot of ways in how we cope with life in general, and that's a discussion for another day. Mm-hmm. But it very much plays out in the way we view and engage in actual relationships.
Absolutely.
Right? Our capacity, in other words, our capacity to love is dramatically stunted the more we are struggling with the issues associated with compulsive sexual behavior, for multiple reasons. We won't even get into the shame or self-trauma that accompanies this, because that's a whole other thing today, which in and of itself is a massive distancer. But the way that we love is also incredibly simplistic, right? And the tragic reality is that pornography is the master trainer for the brain when it comes to teaching and perpetuating this immature approach to love.
Hey, everybody. PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today.
Well, can I say something about that immaturity? I remember when I was about 14, 15 and started looking at dating some girls. I remember how head over heels I would be for a girl. And I'd tell her, you're beautiful. You're the only one for me, right? All into her. And then she'd look across at the quad in high school, and she'd see me checking out other girls and talking them up and pursuing them. And she would be confused. And she comes and say, I thought you told me that we were a thing. Well, we are. We are a thing. What do you mean? We're a thing? And then my behaviors would be off over there portraying just the opposite. And I couldn't comprehend why she was doubting stuff. I remember that mindset as a teenager. Well, in many ways, that mindset followed me right into my adulthood, into my marriage, and I continued to have it for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
This is the immaturity we're talking about.
Well, we just have that lack. It's a lack of capacity to appreciate and engage on a holistic level.
Yeah.
Now, when we start the recovery process, and as we start to work on, again, the whole cornucopia of issues that attend addiction, because addiction is not the problem. It's all of the other things that are fueling it, although it is a problem in and of itself. What starts to happen if we're doing recovery and the process correctly, the good news is that we can, if it's immaturity, I'm trying to think of the opposite. We can mature.
Sure. Yeah. We can become more whole, more complete.
We start to learn how to, again, we start to love and appreciate ourselves in ways that are deeper and more complex. We start to do the same with others. And oftentimes, and this was the case for me, and I know this is going to sound really strange, and this isn't true in entirety because I don't think there's a way to completely do this. But there was an element of compartmentalization between, at least I really tried to keep one in my addiction history, between what I was doing online and in ways outside of my relationship on a sexual level, separate from the relationship I had with my partner.
I did the same thing.
Now, again, is it realistic to think that that can be done in totality? No. And if it goes on for long enough, I think the inevitability is that those worlds completely blur together eventually. That did not completely happen for me. And I can say that the feelings, even though, again, they were terribly immature, they were very different than for the feelings that I had for my wife. They were night and day different for the pull that I experienced with pornography. Again, that doesn't make it okay. And that is difficult to understand unless you've lived this lifestyle.
It is. You know, we
um,
talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and how Dr. Jekyll is in his marriage and he loves his wife and he's into all these things. And then that addiction switch flips and now he's Hyde, a
yeah.
totally different creature.
Well, it's one of the, and it just denotes one of the many frustrating things that is brought to the table, that we really do empathize with partners like the one that wrote in here with on, because there is and we've talked about this on podcasts before. I refer to it as the crazy factor. There are many elements to addiction that I think a partner can really connect with and empathize with. And we can definitely empathize with feelings, but there are certain situations behind the feelings, I think, in life where it's very difficult. You can connect with the feelings, but unless you've been through that event or been in that place, it becomes progressively difficult to really do that. And I think I was talking to a partner a while ago, and we were having a discussion very similar to this, and she just said, this addict world makes no sense to me. And I looked at her and said, thank God that it doesn't.
Yeah. Thank God that it doesn't make
Because it
sense.
shouldn't. It doesn't.
Should
To the
not.
logical, rational person, it doesn't. There is an element to addiction, part of this, that is what I call the crazy factor. It Over time, we become galvanized in these ways of thinking and so warped in our thinking. One, to facilitate our addiction. Two, to make it okay for ourselves. To just like there's so many emotional and moral hoops that one jumps through to perpetuate this lifestyle without losing one's sanity. It's really hard to explain a piece of that to
And
someone.
then one of the things it's hard for us to face, who've suffered from addiction, is the betrayal that takes place first is the betrayal of ourselves.
Yeah.
Betrayal of the higher, better, truer, authentic part of me as a man. I have to betray that into the dust in order to go do the things that we do in addiction. And in that place, I then go and betray my partner. But it starts with self-betrayal, right? And then we betray others. And I remember doing that all the time. I didn't just throw everyone I cared about under the bus. I threw myself under the bus first, and then just went about doing great harm to others after I had done great harm to myself. We don't often talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. Well, again, there are so many things we're touching on in this podcast. We better press on.
Yeah, we should.
This will be the
So
world's largest podcast.
we wrote here, so she just believe him when he tells her she's the most beautiful woman in the world to him?
No.
He does physically prefer her over all of them. She should just believe him because he's in recovery now, right?
No, absolutely not. Right.
Yes.
This,
What's his part? What's his part?
well, there's a lot, and it's hard because what we're dealing with is a dynamic here. I call it it goes in the category of quote unquote the unverifiable, right?
Verifiable.
There are elements to recovery, parts to recovery, where we can, again, as the addict, voice these things to our partner, and we can do it all day long. But some of these things simply cannot be concretely proven, right? And so it comes back to trust. Well, now we are back at the catch-22, because the brain subconsciously says, cool, so what's my trust like with this person? The other part of the brain says, let's look down the list. Shit. Okay, we don't trust anything they're saying, right? And so we're
Right.
we're kind of
I can't read his mind. I can't step inside his head. So what can I verify?
yeah. What can I do? And so for an addict, this means a lot of things. The first is starting to focus on. In fact, we were talking about this just last night in our Sunday support session for addicts on D2C, because a very similar question came up. This involves engaging in and starting to rebuild trust and transparently collaborate with your partner on providing consistency, proactivity, and leading out in the verifiables, right? The things that can be verified. Um, and this is where this is going to be hard for the addicts listening to hear, but it's shocking. It's always shocking to me how many guys I work with and will hear this very thing. How do I get her to trust me? Well, how are your check-ins going? Last week when we talked in therapy, the agreement was you're going to each do a check. You're each going to start checking. You're going to start them on even days. She's going to start them on odd days. How's that going? Well, I did a few, but well, there's your problem, right? We haven't even gotten to anything else. You're asking for trust, but in an area that's not verifiable, but you're not providing it in areas that are.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
we wonder why you're not a safe source for landing for her.
yeah. You're not being trustworthy in things she can see, but you're getting frustrated in when she doesn't trust you in the things she can't.
Absolutely. But
I,
honey, I love you. Do you? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
How how do I know that?
Steve, we're heading into empathy in D2C right now. One of the
Yes.
things that is a huge area of verification for guys in recovery who want to prove these things to their partners, accountability. I'm going to account for how I've harmed you, partner. What all these choices I made with regard to going outside our relationship and looking at, endless naked women and all the things I engaged in. Part of the verifiable is me starting to lean in and own what it is that I did and what it is that I chose and the impact that that had on you. I want to really become an expert at that, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to understand you, betrayed partner, better, to own the stuff that I did, to start to feel your pain. I'm all in with that empathetic process.
Yeah.
That's verifiable.
Three of our most popular topics in D2C, we've been going for a little over 3 years now, and historically speaking, three of our most asked for topics: empathy and accountability and boundary setting
Those
and
are the top
holding.
three. Yeah.
We are doing back to back because they relate so well to each other over the course of the next 2.5 to 4 months in the program. We, of
Yes.
course, the program is always interactive, and we always will answer any questions that you have on, during a session live. That's part of what comes with a subscription. But for any partners or addicts who find themselves struggling with the dynamics we're talking about today, there truly is not a better time to join this program. DareToConnectNow.com. If you go there right now today, we do still have a 2-week free trial going for that. Great time to pick that up and come give the program a shot. These are, what would I? It's kind of weird to say. These are the popular menu items, I guess you could say. Our most requested chef specials in the D2C world, for lack of a better
Oh,
term.
another one. These are the biggest pain points. These are the
They
biggest
are.
frustrations. These are the biggest barriers that people run into.
So come join us. Set yourself up for that. We're recording this in mid-October. Let's hope you have a good set of holidays this year.
Yeah.
DareToConnectNow.com. Come join us.
Start out the new year on the run.
For sure.
Some other things for addicts who are in recovery. Have you decided inside your own brain, at least your willingness, that you're ready to leave this old coping mechanism, pleasure seeking, behind? Are you ready to give it up? Because one of the other verifiable things is that you start to have longer and longer periods of sobriety. So what is your commitment to that? Right? Are you ready? And one of the things, Steve, we have on this list, and the reason I mentioned your willingness to give this up, because the other verifiable thing is, are you ready for disclosure? Are you ready for disclosure of all the acting out behaviors that have gone on for as long as they've gone on? Are you ready to bring all that out into the big bright spotlight? Honesty at all costs. But you have to get to the place where you're ready to decide you're going to give this up and you're going to work towards longer and longer sobriety. Otherwise, what happens? You go straight to disclosure and you tell everything. And then a month, a week, a month, 6 months later, you go back into these behaviors. And now you're just adding salt to the wounds. because you disclosed and now you're back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, it makes sad sense. That's a good way to put it, I guess. I shouldn't say makes sense. We know a lot of this is bizarre, and we appreciate you partners for hanging through this. But hopefully you're seeing some of what we're talking about, and for the addicts, especially listening, guys. Hopefully you're taking this as a step forward, because I mean, just being candid with you, it's not like I'm talking from a third person perspective of, geez, these guys, asking for trust when they're not being. If you're watching on YouTube, I know a lot of you listen just audio only. I'm raising both hands, right?
Yeah.
Definitely been this guy,
Yeah.
right? If we really want to change, then we really have to change, right? I mean, it sounds so simple, but we've got to make sure that we are doing the work on our side of the street to set a healthy base for recovery for our partner as far as the trust building piece goes to happen. Now the question becomes, right, what is the her part, right?
Well,
Um,
can I say one other thing, Steve?
or
Part of the process on this for us as addicts in recovery is what we call making amends.
yes.
We can never make up for what we've done. That betrayal has happened. We'll never be able to go back and undo it. But going forward, we can start to make amends. And part of the amends process is actually another part of the adding back to the trust account in the relationship. One of the big ones for me was honoring any commitments I made to my partner, not just sexually or recovery wise, but if I said I was going to do something, come hell or high water, I would do it. I'm going to take the trash out every Sunday night. Well, blasted well, I was going to get that trash out, right? These little commitments, these little follow throughs, these little ways that we begin to make these deposits to that trust account over and over and over again. This is part of the amends process. This is part of showing I'm changing, I'm different. I really do love you. And like my wife said to me after I'd said that for the umpteenth time, talk is cheap. Show me.
Mm,
I had to decide if I was going to move into the show me phase of this
yeah.
and do it consistently.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, guys, because we only have a few minutes left. What is her side of the street in this? Now we want to be clear again. You can't fix him, right? And that's not what we're going to be talking about for the last couple of minutes here. This is the best thing that a partner can do at this stage in the process is to focus on herself, frankly, in healthy ways. So there's a couple of beginning pieces to this. Some of you are acquainted with this already. For some, this might be new. First and foremost is a partner, if it needs to happen, and we don't know. Again, this submission was fairly brief, so whether this applies to this partner or not, but the first is be doing the work that needs to be done to. For some of you, it might be filling in little nail holes. For others of you, it might be building the building from the ground up in terms of building for the first time, growing self-worth and self-esteem.
Yes.
One of the hardest challenges for partners that we work with in D2C and in our clinics is, oftentimes the marriage has become not just interdependent, but in many ways there's an unhealthy element of codependency in the relationship that has developed, where the lines between making sure that we're taking care of ourselves versus being overly invested in a partner in ways that might not be the healthiest. That's very common. It's a very common thing that can happen in relationships. Oftentimes it goes undetected until something like this happens, and then we sometimes will see, oh my gosh, I had way too many of my self-esteem eggs, so to speak, right, in my partner's basket.
Yeah.
And even though, again, this whole thing is terribly unfair and awful, one of the silver linings to recovery is that it can put a partner in a position where she's seeing the need to, gosh, maybe I need to rebalance this, right? I need to extend my support system, my network. I need to, maybe my coupleship, for example, has become too, the clinical term is enmeshed or too involved with, at the exclusion of all other relationships, right? How do I bring balance to that? How do I learn to be more healthy and consistent in choosing myself, right? Making sure that my bucket gets filled. As the adage always goes, you can't put the what do they say on a plane? You can't put the air over, the air mask over the person next to you until you put it over yourself first.
Yeah.
Right. Making sure that I'm filling that bucket. That's another important piece as well.
Well, and if her addict partner's not in the place where he's advanced enough in his recovery to have this maturity process and this true connection, she's got to have a support system outside of him where she can find people like that, people who are more mature, people who can provide her with positive support and feedback, and help to build her self-esteem and her worth. And if she decides that that she believes in him and can see his potential and possibility, she's going to plug into that outside support system as he comes along in his process and shows real progress. My wife told me, she says, I'm on my train of life. It's leaving the station. I have a whole support system in place, but I hope that you'll jump on your train and follow along on the parallel track, and eventually we can come together and really collaborate and really connect. And I'm willing to look at that possibility for a certain amount of time, if you're willing to really put in the work and lean in and lead out and do the things that you need to. I'm not going anywhere right now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, addicts and partners, we have so much love for all of you. We were talking to I was talking to the guys in our support session last night, and Mark and I, we're pretty lucky because I think we're part of a fairly small segment of the population that gets to do what we're passionate about for a living. We love working with all of you, whether it's in our clinics, seeing your questions here on the podcast or in Dare to Connect. We hope that you'll consider joining Dare to Connect. Grab that 2-week free trial at daretoconnectnow.com. We'd love to have you join us, just like this Partners is planning to do. We can't wait to see her and her partner in here soon. As always, you are welcome to send us your submissions through the same website, daretoconnectnow.com. Click on the PBSE podcast link up at the top, and that will take you to a contact form where you can send those in to us. And I know this sounds like you're ordering a set of Ginsu knives off of a TV infomercial, but shipping and handling is about 4 to 8 weeks on those, and we'll get to those in terms of getting them answered on the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us, everybody. As always, we love and appreciate all of you, and we'll see some of you in D2C and others in our next episode here at PBSE.
Take care, everybody.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.